John Lennon and Yoko Ono. The love affair between a famous Beatle and a Japanese artist. Her detractors called her a demon in female form, and him, an uncomplaining victim. Fans of the Beatles accused her of breaking up the famous Liverpool Four. She was also disliked by the Beatles themselves. Except, of course, for Lennon. He said of meeting Yoko, "I feel like I've won a big prize." And she wrote in her diary the night they met, "I think I found someone I can love." Yoko always knew exactly what she wanted. And so Lennon began to receive postcards with the inscriptions "Breathe, Dance, Watch the Fire Until Dawn." Yoko would call him and talk to him for hours about art. She'd wait outside his house. She wanted to win him over. And she succeeded. After a while, John discovered he had a crush on her. After a while, John found he couldn't live a day without her. "The child of the ocean is calling me," he sang in one of his songs. Yoko means child of the ocean in Japanese. By his 27th birthday, John Lennon had crazy popularity, $1 million fortune, a 100-bedroom house, luxury cars, a wife and son. He had it all, and he was bored. Yoko was bored too and was looking for a new one. They immediately divorced their previous spouses and got married. Their honeymoon took place in Amsterdam, causing a stir with their bed interview. Reporters gathered under the door of their Hilton suite expected the scandalous couple to want to be interviewed while having sex, but Yoko and John, in white pajamas, sat on the bed in the flower-decorated room and talked about peace. It was their protest against the Vietnam War. The album Two Virgins was also apathetic. Yoko and John were photographed naked on the cover, and there was no music in the album at all, just moans, squeaks and other sounds. They participated in demonstrations, made movies, John recorded songs. However, critics wrote, the songs became weaker. Former fans said, Yoko John is not good for John. John developed depression again. Yoko suggested they break up for a while. She knew John needed time. He needed to decide for himself who he was and where he was. More parties, new friends and girlfriends. And new songs. Lennon's songs were back at the top of the charts. But was he happy? John was mad with longing for Yoko. He missed her terribly, painfully. A year and a half later, they met. And they never parted again. October 8, 1975, on the day of John's 35th birthday, Yoko gave birth to a son. Lennon found peace of mind. "I'm free as never before and ready for new creativity." They lived in unison, until that fateful shot by a crazed fan in December 1980. "Why doesn't anyone believe we just loved each other?" Laugh Lennon. "We just loved each other." Yoko says the same thing now in rare interviews. Everything else is pop history. Henry Ford and Clara Jane Bryant. The story of a great inventor and his great wife. In the late 90s of the 19th century in the electric company in Detroit, a young mechanic worked for $11 a week. He worked 10 hours a day, and when he came home, he often worked half the night in his barn trying to invent a new type of engine. His father thought that the guy was wasting his time, neighbors called him crazy, no one believed that anything good would come out of these activities. No one except his wife. She helped him work at night, holding an oil lamp over his head for hours at a time. Her hands were turning blue, her teeth were chattering from the cold. She had a cold every now and then, but she had so much faith in her husband. Years later, there was a noise from the barn. The neighbor saw a madman and his wife riding down the road in one cart without a horse. The crank's name was Henry Ford. By the age of 50, Ford had become a multimillionaire and his car was one of America's national symbols. When, recording an interview with Henry Ford, a journalist asked who Ford would like to be in another life, the genius replied simply, "Anybody. As long as I had my wife by my side." Cleopatra and Caesar. The bloody love of the pharaoh and the emperor. Men were crazy about her, for a night spent in her arms, were ready to give their lives and went to it voluntarily. Paid with their lives and the great Roman generals. Caesar and Mark Antony. Cleopatra was not a beauty, but had incredible charm and charisma, was seductive, cunning and very clever. This first woman politician in history received an excellent education, studied mathematics, philosophy, literature, skillfully played musical instruments and knew 8 languages. Caesar she fell in love with her cunning. Dressed in the most beautiful clothes, she ordered the servants to wrap it in a carpet and bring as a gift to Caesar. Knowing the subtleties of all existing at the time of love-making of the ancient world, Cleopatra, amazed the spoiled emperor ingenuity and a subtle sense of humor. Her movements and voice literally bewitched Caesar. Julius, the same night he became her lover. Thus, Cleopatra paid a huge national debt, received the Egyptian throne and the love of a great commander. But the Romans could not forgive him love relations with an Egyptian woman, and as a result of an insidious plot Caesar was killed. Cleopatra was able to fall in love with another commander fighting for the Roman throne, Mark Antony. It was a mad passion, sweeping away everything in its path, but even here lovers were waiting for failure. Rome went to Alexandria at war, Antony and Cleopatra lost. The Roman commander thought that his beloved died, and unable to survive it, threw himself on the sword. And Cleopatra, to avoid captivity and shame, ordered to bring her a poisonous snake, Napoleon Bonaparte and Josephine. The love story of a great general and a beautiful Creole woman. They met when Napoleon was still poor, unattractive and unknown to anyone, and Josephine already had the status of a widow, often changed lovers, and in addition was older than her future husband by 6 years. But as if an unknown force attracted them to each other. After spending an evening with a beautiful Creole, Bonaparte was enchanted by her for the rest of his life. They became lovers and then spouses, changing their ages on paper. On the day of the wedding in March 1796, Bonaparte gave his beloved a sapphire ring. Inside the ring was engraved, "This is fate." And soon fate made Josephine empress and Bonaparte emperor. The great commander confidently seized the whole world, winning one victory after another, and from each campaign sent his beloved wife tender and passionate letters full of revelations and confessions. But time passed, Napoleon dreamed of heirs, and Josephine could not get pregnant. In addition, rumors about cheating temperamental Creole, long stayed alone, confirmed. And then Bonaparte decides to conclude a new marriage with Princess Marie-Louise of Austria to preserve the dynasty and prolong his family. In 1809 Josephine and Napoleon divorced. Josephine retains the title of Empress at Bonaparte's insistence. She also receives the Élysée Palace, Navarre Castle, Malmaison, $3 million a year, coats of arms, escort, guards and all the trappings of royalty. But even after the divorce, the emperor continues to write Josephine tender letters full of love and warmth. A new marriage and the appearance of a long-awaited son do not bring Bonaparte happiness. After the defeat at Waterloo, the emperor goes into exile on the island of St. Helena. Josephine refused to accompany him, and a couple of months after Napoleon's abdication of power, she dies. And in 1821 dies and the great commander of all times and peoples Napoleon Bonaparte with the name of his favorite Josephine on his lips, Edith Piaf and Marcel Cerdan. A Parisian sparrow and a Moroccan striker. This love story began in Paris. Edith Piaf was introduced to the Moroccan bombardier and Marcel Cerdan was introduced to the great Edith Piaf. A few days later, Marcel called the singer and asked for a meeting. The morning they realized that they were in love. Next to a tall and muscular athlete Parisian sparrow Edith Piaf, sparrow in French, the height of only 147 centimeters, looked like a little girl. At night they often went for walks in New York. Both loved to ride the Russian roller coaster. This unremarkable couple was recognized on the streets, watching in amazement as they devour ice cream and squeal on rides like mere mortals. Love affair of the French singer and French boxing champion did not go unnoticed. Journalists wanted to ignite a grandiose scandal, but the boxer first gathered a press conference. "Do you want to know if I love Piaf?" "Yes, I do. Yes, she's my mistress, only because I'm married. And I can't get a divorce." He blurted out. In the morning, no newspaper did not write about Edith and Marcel a line, and by lunch Edith Piaf brought a huge basket of flowers from journalists. In the flowers was enclosed card, "From the gentleman, the woman they love most in the world." October 28, 1949, Cerdan dropped everything and flew to New York, receiving a telegram from his beloved. "I miss you." His plane crashed near the Azores. In the morning Edith woke up not long awaited kiss Marcel, and terrible news. That evening on the stage of the Hall Versailles Edith Piaf was carried on his hands, she could not go. Stopping the applause of the audience, she quietly said, "Today you don't have to clap for me. Today I sing for Marcel Cerdan. For him alone." All stories are partly based on legends and make no claim to historical accuracy. Thank you for watching. If you liked the story, subscribe to my channel, put likes and press the bell. A lot of new interesting romantic stories are waiting for you ahead.